G'day and welcome back to the shed, and this is part 2 of this Admiral Transistor 8 that I've been working on. So I intend to continue where I left off with part 1, and if you watched part 1 you'd realise that after changing all the caps I found that one of the output transistors had blown, a push-pull pair. All the transistors in this have been changed, they're not the original types. And I didn't have any germanium transistors to substitute at the time. I have now, but I decided to try a couple of silicon transistors, just BC559s I think they are, general purpose silicon transistor, and got it working up to a point. I managed to fiddle around with some resistor values to get it reasonably undistorted, but I still have a problem with them being overdriven. There's way too much gain, and yeah, there's a couple of other issues. Thank you to everyone that's sent me information and advice on this. I've got a lot to learn about transistors. Valve radios are my comfort zone and I'm definitely out of it here, but I guess you have to step out of your comfort zone occasionally to learn anything. Anyway, one thing that people have pointed out was that I replaced a resistor on the emitters of these two. It's a common emitter to ground, and the circuit said 47 ohms. People are telling me it should be 4.7. Now the circuit's pretty spotty, it's hard to read, so I'll take their word for it. I'm going to swap that back for a 4.7 and see what difference that makes. It may not make any difference, but at least I'll be starting from a reasonable point. I suppose I don't have to factor in the possibility of what that might do. I haven't been able to work out exactly what the effect would be of having the wrong value in there, but I think it's best to change it back. So I'll do that first, and then I'll take you through all the other stuff that I need to do with this thing. So this is the resistor I took out. I managed to find it again. It actually measures 5.3 or 2 depending on allowing for the resistance of my meter leads, but I don't have anything closer. I certainly don't have a 4.7 resistor anywhere here. I'd have to go down to the shop and buy one. So I'm going to put this back in for now. At least it'll be a lot closer than the 47 one I put in. So here is the 47 ohm that I put into it, and also a couple of people said that this inverse temperature coefficient resistor here is no longer going to be necessary if I'm using silicon transistors, so I'll probably take that out of circuit as well. It'll tidy things up a lot, but first I've got to get rid of this. Okay, so I might, before I change anything else, apply a bit of power to this and just see what it does. Okay, so the power supply is still set to 12 volts where I left it before I went away. Output is currently off. Just hook this up. And we'll see what happens. The loss of my dad in my little world, and that's enough of that. Anyway, on with the show. We'll check in to see how things are proceeding at St Mary's Church in the city today, as many gather to show their reverence to Pope Francis. Well, that sounds reasonably good, actually. It seems to have improved somewhat. Program that was played in classrooms from the 1940s right up until the 2000s. Kate Lever. It does, the volume does come up very quickly though when you turn that. Some of ABC Songbook's greatest hits has been underway. I wonder if you can remember any of the songs you sang for that. 0437. Well into distortion at that volume, but I suspect it's more the speaker than the output. Okay, so next thought I'd get rid of this mess. Now this is the inverse temperature coefficient resistor sitting in here, and I'm told that's not going to be necessary with a silicon output stage. So this is it here, and it forms the second half of this voltage divider between the B minus, of course, because it's positive ground, and the positive ground here, and that, as far as I can tell, will set the voltage on the emitter and therefore on the base, and therefore the base emitter current. So altering this, I think the more I reduce it, the lower voltage I'll have on the bases, and if I can bring that down to a point where it's clean, not distorting, I should arrive at, you know, a reasonable value. I've got 2.7k in it at the moment. I think that's probably going to be too much. The other thing is there's no instructions or advice about how to adjust the quiescent current in this output stage on this radio. It is what it is. I'm wondering how I can possibly measure it. Perhaps if I break into the output transformer primary here, I could see what's going through the transistors. I guess I would only see 1/2 from B plus to the collector here on one side, but I guess they should both be the same. So I'll have a fiddle with that, and I'll see if I can watch this quiescent current here, if that's what it is, and get it down to something reasonable and still achieve a clean, undistorted sound. By the way, I have thought about replacing these silicon ones with the germanium ones I bought, but I'd kind of like to get these ones working, just to prove a point, I suppose, that it can be done, and that replacing germanium transistors with silicon is a viable option, sometimes at least. So anyway, let's just get rid of this. It wants to stick. There we go. Now I'm going to put a wire in here so I can fiddle with the value there without having to mess with the board too much. And I'll just stick a wire up through here and just tack it onto there.
Cash back on another purchase. Unbelievable! And Laura just unlocked more exclusive experiences.
Now that's running with the 2.7k resistor in it, and that's actually pretty good. That's going back to almost zero on the pot when it's turned down. Turning it up.
Appropriate for you. Product target market on the CommBank website.
April is National Greyhound Adoption Month. Is celebrating with a special offer. Adopt a greyhound for just $75 this April instead of the usual $200.
I'm not entirely sure that we're not getting a bit of crossover distortion in there though. It's reasonable but not great. So where do we go from here? Well, I guess what we probably need to do is measure the collector current on this, and we want to do that with zero signal. Now we're getting almost zero signal, but not quite. So if I ground the wiper of the pot, yep, that disappears altogether now. So that's got zero sound coming out of it now. Now I've identified this red wire as a center tap on the output transformer, so either of these, the brown or the blue, will give us the collector current through one or the other of those transistors. So just turning the power off for a minute. I'll just desolder. Oh, this one will do. That's the red one, Don, don't do that. The blue. Okay, and I'll hook a clip lead up to that. Okay, so that's on the 25 milliamp scale. We've got the audio grounded. Just turn it on and just see what we get. Oops, wrong way around. Okay, it had to be one or the other, didn't it? Okay, turning it on. That's a lot. Okay, so if I go down to 0.25 amps, so 0.25, that will be about 50, 60. Okay, off with that. I guess we need to get that down. Okay, I've temporarily jumped that lead back onto the output transformer. What I thought I might do is just turn it on and just see what voltage we've got on the base. So on again. Now the base back to the end of this resistor here is the emitter. So I'll try not to short anything with this meter lead. Now there's the base there. So that's on 2.5 volts, so we got about 0.5. 0.6 of a volt on the base. Okay, I thought I'd try with the digital meter. Probably going to give us a more accurate reading. So reaching down in here to the end of this resistor, and the base is there, 0.589, 0.59. Okay. So I'm going to try increasing this resistance here. That should give us a little bit more voltage across the base. I'll just try it by experimentation, I suppose. Just try a few different values and see how we go. So I'll start with just putting another 1K in there and just see what that does. Oh, that's come loose from the back of the board now. What have I done? And the antenna's falling off. Ah! Alright, so let's get this back on. I did just tack it on, and obviously not very well. There we go. I'll just pull that up out of the way and just tack it on there. Yep, that's on. Just bend the leads up out of the way. Alright, so let's have another look. Turning it on, and we'll see what we've got on the base now to the emitter. .6. So it's gone up a little bit. Alright, would you believe I couldn't find another 1K resistor, so what I've got is a 3.3K in here and another 1K there, so we've got 4.3K across it. We'll see what that does to the base voltage, so I'll just turn it on and see what we've got now. If I can get to this without touching anything. What do we got now? 0.61. Still not very much. I want 0.7.
Well, they do now, and you know, women have attempted selection, and that's appropriate. I mean, people need to meet the qualifications, and that's not the only combat role, of course. There are combat roles in infantry, and
Okay, so I've gone back to about 3.7K in there. That seems to give me the best subjectively good audio quality.
Yes, there will be a defence announcement very shortly.
Sounds quite good.
would you be at that?
Yes, I will be.
Milliamps, we're running at around 10, 9, 10.
All right, and you'd be alongside Peter Dutton?
Happy to be alongside Peter.
Okay, all right. Another observation that people have made is that some of the signage that you have in your area, the core flutes, the posters, whatever, don't necessarily have the big L Liberal on it.
Well,
Now, of course, that's measuring DC or AC milliamps, and part of that'll be signal. I don't know why I was getting such high DC readings on that before, but that seems alright to me. So look, I'll put this back, put the wire back on the output transformer, and perhaps I'm not even measuring that properly, and I'm really groping around in the dark here. I'm a complete amateur when it comes to transistors, so no idea. One more thing I wanted to do was to measure the current draw from the battery or from the power supply. So I've hooked the meter up to that in series with the power supply. I put it on.
PINK 17, and boy has he delivered. So really good news for the dockers on that front.
So that's in amps, 135 milliamps, 136. I'll see if it goes up much as I turn it up.
Eventually he'll maybe play mostly midfield, but as a forward, he's got poise, he's got all the skills.
Not an awful lot.
But he's got that one.
That's about what we're going to get, I think. 140 now. That's as good as I can get it, I think, anyway, and hopefully that will give a reasonable battery life. I'd have to calculate it out or just buy a set of batteries and see how long they last. That'll be the easy way, or the lazy way. Okay, so there's a few other things to look at. Now, the number one issue I have to deal with is this pot. The switch doesn't work for a start, and it doesn't go all the way to zero. The fact that it doesn't go to zero isn't such a big deal now, because the set is turning down pretty much to a low volume. I think that resistor on the emitters was the problem with that. But yeah, the fact that it doesn't switch off is a problem, especially in a battery set. So I'm probably going to have to pull this out. Now, this is going to be a bit of a nightmare to get out because it's attached to this shield, and this brass section here is on the outside of the steel mounting assembly and shield. I presume it's a shield, it's probably just there for mounting. So that is all soldered through the board, as well as the switch contact and the 3 connections to the pot. So it's going to be a bit of a problem to get out. I hope I can fix it once I do get it out. So this frame around it has got these 2 tabs here, this one, these 3 contacts, and I believe there should be a switch contact. Maybe this one, I'm not sure which one it is. So here, let's try and get this out. Now I've got the serious soldering iron out, and I'm going to try and sucker most of this stuff off. It's on the ground plane. If I can just get enough of it out to free them. That's not going to be easy though. Now if I can bend those pins while I heat it, I might be able to get them free. Actually, if I'll see if I can push it with a soldering iron. Yeah, kind of, it springs back. I think the track's gone there anyway. This one maybe. Okay, so I've wiggled these pins free. They all move. So I should in theory be able to pull this upwards and out, but well, it's coming a little bit. I probably need a bit of leverage on it. I'll try a little bit there. See if that helps. Yes. Perhaps if I lever this side up a little, I'll get a screwdriver in there. Yep, that's coming up. Something is holding it and I can't tell what it is. Okay, I think we're almost there. I think there is this tab, folded over tab thing here, which I think is the switch contact. So we'll just sucker as much as I can out of that. Okay, so that's opened the hole up. Maybe I can get it hot and prise it up. That's looking fairly promising. Or did I just break it off? Yeah, I just broke it off. Great. Oh, I should be able to repair that anyway. Okay, so let's see if I can now prise this thing out. That's coming. Yes, there we go. And yes, that's the tab I broke off there. I might be able to repair it somehow. I'll just tack a bit of wire onto it. But the main thing is I can now work on it. Well, having extracted it from the circuit board, the next thing was to get this back plate off the switch, and I've done that off camera. It was a bit tedious and messy, but that's now loose enough, I think, to take it off. Probably need a little bit of prising from the screwdriver. Just lift that a bit, perhaps. I think that terminal needs a little bit of twisting to make it go through, but I don't think it's adhering to the solder, so yep, that should come off now. Just a little bit of brute force. There we go. Okay, and behind it we have a fairly normal looking pot, except that we have this brass collar in front of this metal frame, and that can really only be removed if I remove this brass ring around here and lift it off the spindle, which I don't really want to do at this stage. The pot itself is quiet, it's not scratchy at all. The issue is the switch, which doesn't turn off. So I think what I might do is just lift these tabs here and have a look inside the switch and see if I can tell what's going on from there. So, using my second best cutters, I have one set of cutters which I keep for nice work where I need a good pair, and this one's got a few gaps in it and it's been abused a little bit. They don't seem to last long. Yep, that's doing it. That's probably going to be okay. Okay. Now, looking at it from here, the contacts go there, top right corner. All right. Oh, just popped off. Okay. These went this way. So this here, did anything else come out? I don't think so. So we've got these two contacts here. Oh, this wants to come off. Okay. We have a spring there, which I'll leave exactly where it was, and this little toggle here, which seems to be intact and looks like the spring goes into that little hole in it there. It may have just popped out, I don't know. So, looking at this, yeah, we have that peg thing there, which clearly clicks this toggle off, and it should sit in that fork there and turn it. So if I sit that in there and hold it in place, that should, yep, flip around. And turning it back, it should capture it, and but it doesn't. Flip it back. Yes, it does. So why is this not working? Firstly, how does this interact with this plate? Oops. Alright, I'm just going to rewatch the video and check the position of this spring, because it doesn't seem to make sense to me. Well, about an hour and a half ago, I think, I picked this piece up and I heard something drop, and I noticed that this little ring around this bush was missing. I've searched for it for the last hour and a half, crawling around the floor, so I wasn't very happy at the time, but I'm happy now because I've found it. So now I can start to work out how the hell this thing goes back together. Now this should, if I'm lucky, still have a spring on the other side of it. Yes, it does, thankfully. I'll just give it a clean out in there anyway. The upshot of that, or the good side I suppose, is that the workbench has now had a thorough clean and sort out, and I found all sorts of things that I didn't even know I had. Nothing appears to be damaged, at least, so I think perhaps it had just come out of place. There is a little hole in the end of this toggle piece here, which I think the spring may have gone into and might have slipped out. I don't know, but I suspect that might be the case. So this piece clearly sits in there and moves like that. And this ring here, I guess, will sit on the inside of this track and roll downwards to make up, to connect these two here, I think, judging from the fact that these were in this way, and that's the only way it can move. So the positioning of the spring is the next thing. Okay, I went back over my video to find out how this spring went, and luckily I did capture it on the video. The spring goes on this side of the plate with this little thing in here, and this point here must lock into that hole in this toggle here. So I need to assemble this so that oh my god, that's going to be difficult. Okay, perhaps I can hold it in place with some grease. I'll try that. Okay, I put some grease on that, and maybe, if I'm lucky, I can assemble the whole unit. Nope. Now with that facing that way, that's in its correct pivot point. The spring I think is still fitted correctly, but it will not flip to over center. Why? Okay, I'll have to take it out. Clearly the amount of movement available doesn't trigger it. Okay, so having fiddled with this for a while, it's become clear that this peg, this one here, which turns around and comes to a stop there at the anti-clockwise end of the pot. Now that will not rotate further. It is not pushing this toggle far enough to put the spring over center. So it sits in here in its little hole, and when you turn it on, it turns to the right, and that's fine. It turns on very nicely. It just won't turn off again when you get to the other end. It will go as far as that. It needs to go a bit further. Whether that's through wear or what, I don't know. The hole is a bit worn, the pin is a bit worn, this itself is possibly a bit worn. I'm looking at possibilities of either attaching a sleeve over that peg to give it a little bit more width. There's plenty of room for it to sit in there if it was bigger. Or building up this pin, this is the off side and I've marked it in black, on the inside to push it over a little bit further. I was thinking of putting JB Weld on the inside here, or another possibility is I've got this little piece of brass which I may be able to fold around there, cut off and attach with JB Weld. I'm not too sure. I'll have a go at that first because I think brass would be more durable than the JB Weld. Okay, I think I can bend this piece of brass around here enough to do the job. It is quite a nice fit if you get it in the right spot, and hold that on with JB Weld perhaps. I'll see if I can just bend it in a bit. Being very careful, of course, not to break anything. That's not bad. And I need to cut it off just at the bottom there. If I squeeze it shut just a fraction more, I might be able to press it on. Yeah, that is a fairly firm fit, but it'll need something to hold it. JB Weld or something. Alright, so I'll do that. I'll attach it with a bit of JB Weld, leave it overnight to set. Now, I think that that pin will still sit in there and operate it. But looking at the diameter of the pin, yes, it will go in there. Alright, of course this may not work, but you've got to try something. Otherwise, I try and find another pot with a switch on it, 25k, and fit it into this thing. Yeah, I think I'll try and fix it. So mixing up a bit of JB Weld, and I'm going to have to mix far too much just to get the proportions approximately right. But that's the way it is. So maybe that much. And supposedly an equal amount of hardener. So about that. Now, so I'll let that sit there overnight, and in the morning we'll assemble this and see if it has worked. Well, it's the next morning, and I tried fitting this little toggle piece in here to see if my little modification had worked, and I didn't have enough clearance to put it in there. That's just not going to work that way. I've taken it off before the JB Weld set too hard, and I'm going to have to find another approach to this. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've lifted these tabs around here, and I should be able to remove this section here. In fact, yes, that's coming up. Okay, so now we have this mechanism here. I thought perhaps this had moved in relation to the wiper, but it doesn't look like it has. So perhaps I can build up this peg to be a little bit larger to push the little thing a little bit further, or part of the problem is that, if I put this back on here for a moment, it goes to there and stops. It won't rotate any further around. Now that stop is regulated by this piece here hitting this little section in here. So it occurs to me that if I filed a little bit off this, the thing would rotate a little bit further around, and we would get perhaps enough rotation to click the thing past centre. So nothing much to lose. I'll have a go at that. If not, I'll have to find some other way of doing it. But I'll start by just filing a little bit off this to get a little bit further rotation. Now this can rotate another millimetre or so before the wiper drops off the track there. So we do have a little bit of wriggle room. I hate doing this, it's not reversible, but it's yeah, it's pretty much a last ditch effort, I guess. Alright, so that's taken, I suppose, a millimetre off the end. I'm not sure if that's enough, but let's just fit it and see how this works. That goes that way. I'm not going to bend all the tabs over yet, just a couple of them to hold it in place. I don't want to break any off either. That would be another problem to deal with. So that now goes around a little further. I'll put that in there and see how far it pushes it when it goes to off. That goes all the way to there now. That might be enough to do it. I don't know. I'd like it to go even further around, maybe to there, but it's better than it was. Okay, that's particularly difficult. What if I bend these tabs up and assemble it into this and then lower it in onto the... is that going to be any good? Maybe. Okay, so I've carefully assembled this in here and fed it through the back here so that that does seem to be in its correct position. So first I need to put the switch plate on. Yes. That's it, and the little pin goes through there, so that should be right. And that will click either way. Okay, so holding this on firmly, and hear that? It clicked off, and it clicks on, and it clicks off, and it clicks on. Listen to this. That might just be fixed. Woohoo! I think I've done it. Alright, I'm going to bend these tabs over before anything comes loose. So starting with a couple on the switch plate. I'll bend them over properly later, but I don't want this to fall apart. Again, it's too hard to put together. I'll try putting it on arms. One in there, and one in there. That is making contact. Now, off, on, off, on. Woohoo! I think I've done it. Okay. I'm just bending the tabs down firmly. And this one, can I get this one? Yes. Now just to repair this plate that goes on the back of the switch. I've cleaned it up a bit with isopropyl, and you may remember I broke the tab off this one here which goes down into the board. So I'll solder a bit of wire onto that. Bend it forward and then up at exactly the point where the tab would have gone. There. I think that'll be alright. I'll just put it in the board and make sure. Yep, that's where it sits. That should be fine. I'll try and keep the hole in that tag there. Yep. Okay, now to fit it back into the circuit board, and I've cleaned this up a bit with isopropyl. I should probably spray a coating of some sort over it to protect it. I'm not quite sure what. I've pre-soldered this wire in because it's going to be really hard to get to once the pot is mounted. So here goes. So first of all, that little wire needs to go through that hole. Yep, that's right. Now the tabs, yes. Alright, let's get some solder onto it, starting with that switch wire there. I think that's everything. Now, if the red wire goes to ground, I might just put a longer one on it because it's a bit shorter than the other one and they don't reach very well. So, the aerial wires are all still attached. I think everything's soldered on. I'm hooking it up to the power supply. And power is on.
For spiritual, mental health, so that then when we come together, we're interesting and we're not looking to the other to fulfill all of those needs. We've actually taken responsibility for fulfilling them ourselves, and a whole range of people are helping us fill them, you know, during COVID and at other times in our relationships.
Well, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I think we might start putting this all back together. Now, as for the antenna, which you may remember didn't catch and lock down, I found that this spring was catching and not allowing the thing to move across fully. I took the spring out and rotated it so it's pointing the opposite direction, and it seems to be working without any problems. So I'll try putting the antenna in. I've desoldered it again. Feed the various wires through. And now we'll just press that down in there. And it does in fact lock. There's a spring that goes on it too, and I've forgotten that, but there we go. I'll have to find that spring. It'll be in the box of parts here. There's the spring, and there was a circlip that held it all in place. and there it is there. Okay, so I'll need to take that off, put the spring on. Thread these through, hopefully for the last time. And I'll just put a little bit of grease on that because it felt a bit tight. Okay, I fitted that in, fitted the circlip, and it locks. So one more thing fixed. So the next thing, I guess, is to fit this back where it came from on the top here, and this volume control has to go through there, and the tuning cap screws on there somehow. How does that happen? Is that right? But there's two big screw holes, but that doesn't seem to be right. Maybe it goes the other way around. Yes, it must do. Yes, that looks right. And that has a conventional nut on it. The tuning cap screws in from there. And just screwing the volume pot in here. And I left the tuning cap screws loose until I'd done that, so I'll now pop them in, making sure the holes line up on the top. Okay, now what comes next? The aerial, I guess. But first I have to put on this cover that goes over there. This thing, and it, I think, goes over the, no, it goes over that way. Yep, and the board then screws on like that. Okay, I've just pulled it all apart and put it back together again because the big black serrated washer that goes on the pot has to go on the inside of the chassis. Otherwise the screw holes in the circuit board don't line up with the top. It just moves the board along a little bit. And I'll put the screws in the top to make sure. So I think that's tight now. Yep. Now this top piece goes on, remembering that the earth connection goes on this front right corner. And the rest of the screws have washers. Now before I refit the aerial on the top of the radio, I need to refit the handle. You might remember I had a piece chipped off the corner. I tried to repair that by cutting pieces out of an unused section, I suppose, or the inner rim of the bottom case where it wasn't seen, and melting it into the corner here. And it was semi-successful. One problem was that this stuff doesn't melt easily. It goes rubbery and is very difficult to mould into any kind of shape. So I did sort of succeed in the end. That's the repair there. Unfortunately, some of it, the plastic tended to burn, and I've got some black marks in there that I can't get out. I'm not sure what I can do about them. I might just leave it like that. I could try covering it with paint, but it's not that significant, so I think I'll just leave it as is and just fit the handle to the top of the case. So now I'll just feed the wires through, and I'll have to solder on this earth connection. I'll just leave that there while I solder the earth on, if I can. No, I can't. That's a nuisance. I'll just hold it. Okay, now to solder on the aerial wires. Actually I have to lift it up again to do that. Okay, that's those. Now this blue one goes to the aerial coil. And the last screws in. Okay, I've cleaned up the knobs, so I may as well fit them, remembering that I have to slide the cabinet up onto them, so I won't put them on too tightly. And the volume one goes here. They've cleaned up quite well. Now, the last thing, the batteries. Now I've cleaned up the springs. One of them has a blob of solder in the end and I can't get that out. The other one, it fell out. So I'm going to put them in like that. I guess I'll make adequate contact. These attach to the end here with a screw through here. That should by rights come out the other side once I've got it all the way through. It's a bit tight. Why is that not fitting through? This isn't the original screw, it was missing, it had a piece of wire through it. I might just have to enlarge that hole a bit. I'm not going to let it go through. Okay, so this bolt goes through here. I also repaired the cracks in this here with some attention to this from a soldering iron and a bit of super glue. I think that will hold together okay. There we go. And for the final part, the batteries. And I've gone and bought, at great expense, 8 C-cell batteries. And I was surprised by how much they cost. I suppose C-cells are not all that common anymore. Anyway, the 8 of these cost me as much as I paid for the radio in the first place, or very near to it. I don't remember exactly how much I paid, but anyway. So this should go on here with the red to the positive, and okay, that end wasn't supposed to go flying off quite like that. And no doubt about this radio, it's the gift that keeps on giving. The little ends of the plastic broke out here. I probably weakened them drilling a larger diameter hole for the new bolt that went through. It was just a bit bigger than the original one. So I've cut out some strips of tin and pop riveted them on here, and I think that will hold the pressure against the spring. So let's give it a go. So that will now go on over there. And that will go through there and hopefully come out the other side. Yep. Alright. So here goes. Now that is the positive that way. So we want the positives facing out. And the negatives facing out on this side. Okay, we try again. There we go. Now, whoever designed this battery holder really needs some kind of special reward. Can't think what it might be. Oh, this is a horrible arrangement. That's it. That sits in there like that. Now for the bottom of the case. I thought I'd try and do something about this screw or knob that holds the chassis into the cabinet. It's had two wings on the side of it which have broken off, and these locked into these indentations on the bottom. It would rotate, go over that bump and sit in that slot there. So I've made up this piece of metal. It's curved on the bottom and it will sit in there and should do the job, rotate and drop through the slot. Well, there we are. I fastened it into the knob with a small screw. I drilled right through it and finished off by just melting it into the plastic with a hot soldering iron. So hopefully this will work. Put it into its case, slotting that in there, and yep, that locks in nicely. So, the moment of truth.
Great one to watch because he's getting himself into the game today. He's been really impressive. Hasn't had a great start to the match, but he's lifted.
Yeah, well, that's 6IX. It's not too bad. Now, I haven't done an alignment on this. I have got instructions for the alignment. I was going to do it before I put it back together, and then I realised I had to take this whole top off because one of the IF transformers, and it's got 3 of them, you have to get into the top to get to the base of the coil. So I'll do that, but I'll do that off camera because I want to get this video out and I'm running out of time. So I think it probably will benefit from an alignment though. I thought I'd bring it outside away from the interference in the shed because it's pretty bad in there. You don't get much. And it does seem to be performing quite well. So this is 6IX, which is usually fairly hard to get cleanly from here, and that's booming in.
At the Wiki, there's something for everyone. A Michelin star accredited chef, a huge main menu with new weekly specials, and a kids menu that even the little ones will love.
Walks a ride, you know, she just does everything right. She settles when you want her to, she goes when you want her to.
Racing station, that's right. They're coming in very well.
And that's what streaming shows dominating.
That'll be 6 p.m.
Fake, territory, prosper. If you need it cut to size and delivered to site, no worries. See your local Medallia Steel.
WN, I don't know what that is.
Medallia Steel Centre at medalliasteel.com.
Got ads on it, so it's not the ABC.
Who had previously spent more than a decade as the creative director of Le Wave.
I think that's possibly Radio National.
Thanks, Sky. Thanks, Daniel. You're listening to Arts in 30 on Radio National. I'm Daniel Browning. The Greens have called for a living wage for artists. Labor is committed to continuing.
Yeah, obviously the direction wasn't quite right for it.
Policies. We're recording on Tuesday, April the 22nd.
And around here should be the local ABC somewhere, and it'll have football on it.
After just 1 year, and it's going to be a free kick.
And there may be one more station around here yet.
I don't know what he's going to do, but I know that...
Don't know what that is.
It's funny.
So it's picking up a lot of stations, and some I don't even recognise. I suspect it'll come up better with an alignment too, which I'll get onto shortly. But yeah, it really is pulling in the stations, and the sound is fairly clean. Maybe tempted to fiddle with things a little bit more when I get it open to do the alignment. I'm not sure. We'll see how I go. I'm pretty happy with it as it is. It's been a bit of an epic, this one. It's been one thing after another, but we got there in the end. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll be back with something else before too long. I'll catch you then. Bye for now.